There are two reasons for owning a weapon. Those reasons are offense and defense. A weapon is no use for either of those intended purposes if it's not kept somewhere you can lay your hands on it easily, which makes abandoning a weapon quite an odd thing to do. Nevertheless, our ancient ancestors have left their forgotten weapons all over the planet. You'll see the best examples of that in this video. In November 2016, two residents of the Kokorya in Siberia, Russia, went for a walk around the outskirts of their village. While there, they stumbled across a remarkably well-preserved ancient burial on the side of a cliff. There, in that improbable location, they found a wooden sarcophagus of an archer along with his arrow shafts, arrowheads, birch bark quiver, and a few personal effects. They made the inadvisable decision to open the sarcophagus alone rather than calling in the experts. But fortunately, they didn't damage the bones of the adult man who was laid to rest inside it. Experts believe that he lived and died somewhere between the 13th and 15th centuries. This is close to the setting of the English legend of Robin Hood, so maybe this man was Russia's real-life answer to the famous myth. He certainly wasn't a typical archer. The unusual nature of his burial confirms that, as does his sophisticated quiver, which holds pockets for numerous different types of arrows. Nothing like it has ever been found in the region before, which makes experts think that the man might have come from Mongolia rather than Altai. His identity will probably never be known. A collaborative project between archaeologists, local historians, and amateur metal detectorists in the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia yielded fantastic results in 2020 with the discovery of a large haul of Iron Age weapons on a holy mountaintop. The team came together to scan and search the top of Sauerland's Wilsenberg mountain, and over the course of 3 seasons, they found over 150 ancient artifacts. Horse fittings and armor have also been discovered at the site, with the oldest finds coming from the pre-Roman Iron Age of 2,300 years ago, and the newest being about 200 years younger. The mountain has been considered holy since much earlier than that, but the first hill fort was built atop it around 300 BCE and is called Valborg. The ruins of Valborg still stand today, and it's there that most of the discoveries were made. Historians still aren't sure why the hill fort was built, or why there are so many weapons here. The absence of any human burials and the lack of historical information to the contrary implies that there's never been a battle here, and nor is the mountaintop strategically important. Finding artifacts doesn't always mean you find the truth. Archaeologists in Croatia had something to celebrate in May 2020 when an ancient weapon was found in Krka National Park. They say that this is one of the best preserved maculas they've ever come across. They're relatively unique to Croatia and were considered extremely powerful artillery weapons by the standards of the 17th and 18th centuries, which is when they were built and used. You could compare the macula to the modern mortar. This particular example is made of bronze and was found during conservation works at Nakh Fortress in the aforementioned national park. The fortress is much older, dating back to the 14th century, so the discovery of a 17th century weapon inside it came as a big surprise. The macula is considered to be part of the Croatian national identity. They're still used today in the Sinjska Alka, a sort of jousting contest that's held every year to celebrate the victory of a tiny, outnumbered group of Croats against an enormous Ottoman army in battle in August of 1715. Every time a contestant in the event is able to drive their lance through the middle of an iron hoop to score points, a macula is fired to mark the achievement. This macula will never be fired again, but it will make a wonderful museum exhibit. We're back to arrows and quivers again now, but this time they're not connected to a human burial. Instead, French archaeologists think that this bronze quiver and all of the arrows inside it, which were found close to Adam and Oman in March 2016, represent an offer of appeasement to a warmongering god. The arrows are the centerpiece of the deposit, but the team also found battle axes and metal daggers in the ruins of a building from the Iron Age. They believe that all of the artifacts are roughly 3,000 years old. The experts have paid more attention to the quivers and arrows than to the rest of the hall because they're miniature versions of the real thing, and so would never have been used in battle. That raises the prospect that the weapons were created specifically to be buried beneath this property, and the most likely explanation is a votive offering. The purpose of the building is thought to have been religious, so leaving a votive offering during its construction makes sense. Votive offerings aren't uncommon, but it's rare to find one wholly made up of weapons. That's why the research team believes that the religious building might have been devoted to a god of war. The Terracotta Army ranks as one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries of all time, and also one of history's most mysterious. There are riddles large and small about the way the army was built and buried, but one of the biggest puzzles for scientists has been how their weapons remained so well preserved for so many years. In April 2019, a team from the University of Cambridge in England announced they'd found the answer. Almost every terracotta soldier in the army was discovered with a bronze weapon in its hands, although the weapons have long since been taken away for protection and safekeeping. The bronze was later found to have a form of chrome plating that was once described as the world's earliest form of anti-rust technology, but the Cambridge team disagrees. Rather than a high-tech preservation technique, they think the ancient Chinese simply used a type of decorative varnish on the figures without knowing or understanding that it would preserve the weapons for centuries. The lacquer reacted with minerals in the soil that the figures were buried in to create chromium, which then coated the bronze and preserved it. It was a happy accident, but an accident all the same. The Roman fort of Vindolanda in Hexham, England, is one of the most famous in the British Isles and has given up countless priceless Roman artifacts when examined by archaeologists in the past. Even though the site has been combed over many times, the discoveries keep on coming. In September 2017, archaeologists at Vindolanda confirmed the discovery of a cache of ancient Roman cavalry weapons. The haul included ballista bolts, arrowheads, swords, and horse-riding tack. The finds came from a test pit excavation that went deeper below the stone foundations of the stone fortress than ever before. The discoveries point to the existence of a wooden fort that existed before the stone fort was built during the 4th century. The archaeologists found timber floors and walls in the black oxygen-free soil, along with pottery, fences, and animal bones. They think that all of these discoveries, along with the weapons, come from a Roman cavalry barrack. The barrack may have been abandoned in a hurry, as the soil also gave up 2 Roman-era swords in an excellent state of preservation and 2 wooden toy swords that indicate that women and children lived with the soldiers at the barracks. Anyone who's seen the historically inaccurate movie Braveheart knows that Scotland is a land of ancient warriors. Old swords aren't all that rare as discoveries in Scotland, but this one stands out from the crowd. It's the finest individual artifact from a whole treasure trove discovered by amateur metal detectorist Maurice Stepien in a field in Peebles, close to the Scottish borders, in August 2020. Maurice also found a complete horse harness, along with a collection of rings and buckles. The professional archaeologists he contacted to inform them of the find told him that his discoveries are 3,000 years old, dating back to the Bronze Age. The sword is especially well preserved because it was still in its scabbard when it was buried. Some of the other objects in the hall are thought to be chariot wheel axle caps, although that's yet to be confirmed. The Scottish soil did such a good job of preserving the leather and wood of the harness that experts have been able to see how Bronze Age people assembled their horse harnesses for the first time. The whole find has been described as a discovery of national significance. When archaeologists in Germany excavated the grave of a Roman soldier in February 2020, they were confused when they dug up a solid object that looked a little like a chicken tender. Alternatively, for our British viewers, you could say it looked a little like a battered fish. It took a restoration expert a long time to dispense with the rust, but the result achieved by the restoration project is extraordinary. It's now plain to see that this is a beautiful ancient Roman dagger, inlaid with jewels and elaborately decorated. It was still in its sheath when it was found, although it was impossible to see that at first because of all the rust. Experts say the silver artifact is about 2,000 years old. The discovery was made at Haltern am See, not far from the remains of a former Roman military camp that was attacked several times by Germanic tribes. It's likely that the soldier was a victim of one of those raids. A weapon of such beauty wouldn't have been in the hands of a low-ranking soldier, so it's likely that he was a centurion. In November 2020, Roman Novak visited a forested hillside in the Jesenico region of Czechia in search of mushrooms. He ended up finding something far more valuable. Roman is no antique expert, but he immediately knew he'd stumbled across something special when he found this fantastic Bronze Age sword, featuring a cast bronze hilt and decorated with engraved circles and crescent shapes. The sword was found lying next to an axe, and both weapons are believed to be about 3,300 years old. Roman says there had been heavy storms in the area before he headed out, so it's likely that the storms were responsible for exposing the weapons. If they'd been lying in the open all this time, they'd be in much worse condition, and they'd have been found long before now. Experts think the sword might be a long way from home. Based on an analysis of its composition, they think it's a Vasby sword, and so was most likely made in Sweden. The axe, on the other hand, is almost certainly made of local materials. How they came to be in the forest together is something we'll never know, although archaeologists suspect they were left here on purpose. You might have seen brass knuckles before, but you've probably never seen anything that looks like a Bagh nakh. The one you can see in these images is held in the collection of the Met Museum in New York City, USA, and comes from either the 18th or 19th century. It's thought that the first such weapon was made long before that, although nobody knows exactly when. In simple terms, the Bagh nakh is a fist-loaded weapon that operates a little like brass knuckles, but also contains a concealed blade that can be hidden inside the palm when a fist is clenched. There are also bladeless examples of the same weapon, although the curved blades attached to the knuckle bar tend to be larger and sharper in those examples. The name Bagh nakh translates into English as tiger's claw, which is a fair description of the weapon's design. The first use of a Bagh nakh recorded by history is in the assassination of the Bijapur general Afzal Khan by Maratha leader Chhatrapati Shivaji in 1659. Some Bengali Hindu girls still carry one when going to school or walking through dangerous areas alone to this day. A very long time ago, a soldier fell into a lake in Lithuania, still carrying his sword and knives. His remains were eventually discovered in November 2020, and his trusty weapons were still at his side. Scientists think that the soldier had been dead for more than 500 years by the time he was found, and may have spent a few of those centuries totally concealed by mud at the bottom of Lake Asveja. The site isn't thought to be a burial. Instead, it looks like the soldier was covered up one layer of sediment at a time by the shifting currents, and then unveiled again the same way. There was once a bridge leading to Dubengai Castle that passed over this spot, so the soldier may have fallen from it or been thrown from it after a fight. Determining a cause of death proved to be impossible, so all we can do is guess. Considering that he wasn't buried on purpose, though, the fact that his leather boots, spurs, sword, knives, and leather belt all survived for such a long time is incredible. Animals hunt each other. That's a fact of life, and a matter of survival. The history of hunting in humans and human-like species goes back hundreds of thousands of years, and has developed extensively during that time. We can see that in the discovery of this 300,000-year-old hunting stick. Archaeologists and scientists believe that it was used by Homo heidelbergensis to hunt horses and water birds. It's one of a number of hunting tools from the era that have been found in saturated lakeside sediments in Schöningen in Germany's Lower Saxony region in recent years. The sediments offer near-perfect conditions for preservation, which is how the tools have been able to survive for such an incredible amount of time. Spears and thrusting lances from the same era have also been identified and catalogued, demonstrating that some of our earliest common ancestors were capable of a better quality of lateral thinking and adaptation than we generally credit them with. The sticks were cut with stone tools, and then smoothed for aerodynamic purposes, allowing them to fly straight. You could say that the Olympic sport of javelin throwing began with the invention of these throwing sticks. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!